Hi, and welcome to another episode of Gilded Shadows. I have been playing a lot of Yandere games lately for the Yandere Game Jam on itch, so I needed something that wasn't quite as heavy and dark to break things up a little bit. Cause yeah, I can handle that sort of stuff in small doses, but not consistently. So we are moving forward. Okay, so Morgan. That's right. Last episode, I believe Morgan was doing some training, and she had her first moment with Ari, her first real bonding moment. So let's pick up there. Ugh, why couldn't I do it? I'd done it before. Why was it so hard now? The more frustrated you get, the more difficult it will be to focus. The more you keep telling me that, the more frustrated I'll get. Unfazed by me snapping at him, Ari continued to watch with something that seemed suspiciously like amusement. There was a small whisper of laughter from near the door, and I tightened my jaw, annoyed we'd somehow gathered an audience. And Ari hadn't bothered to shoo away the infantry and junior agents lurking. I turned my head that way, intending to give them what was probably not a very intimidating glare. Ari, just behind me, set his hands firmly on either side of my face and forced me to stare straight ahead. Ignore them. Then make them leave. We must all learn to focus through distractions. Currently, they're serving as part of your training. They're serving as an annoyance. Precisely. And you're allowing your frustration to become a hindrance. Instead of focusing on them, focus on destroying the target. The last time I did one of these, I destroyed a building. While you were inside of it, if you'll remember. Then I suppose you must exhibit better control this time. He said it as if it was easy. If cybersts weren't difficult, everyone would be able to do them. Ugh, damn it. I let out a slow breath, trying to clear my head before another attempt. For better or worse, my training had been progressing fast. We'd moved from falling to fighting and from simple clairvoyant awareness to telekinesis. I wasn't sure if it was because there was a rush on getting me to a less embarrassing stage of training because of Sira, or if this place was the goal all along. Either way, Ari was pushing me hard. His specialty was teleportation, something he knew I could mimic, but he was worried whether I had the control to manage it without teleporting myself into a wall or something. So he decided to work on cybersts instead. Theoretically, if I could get the hang of doing those without mass destruction, he reckoned I'd also have the control to handle learning teleportation. And so here we were. But I wasn't having much luck. Rather than destroying anything, I could barely even make a dent in the target. To make matters worse, somehow word had gotten around that we were working on my notorious cyburst. Oh no. So even though Ari reserved the room for private use, other agents had gathered to watch. I tried to shut their whispering out as I closed my eyes again and attempted to focus on my breathing. At least Ari had given me a solid foundation in his meditative techniques before we started working on this. But it was still distracting for there to be people in the door. I reflexively put up a reverse cage around myself to block out their presence. It had the immediate effect of dampening the prickly feeling of them watching me. Now I could focus my mind on my own psi waves. In my head, I perceived them like an image of glowing steam roiling off my body. I could see Ari's too, but with my reverse cage, his were faint and easy to ignore. Now, all I had to do was channel that energy towards the target. I opened my eyes at the same time I gave the energy a mental shove. Ooh. It exploded away from me with enough force to make me recoil. A gasp sounded behind me. I panicked and tried to reach out to yank it all back. The resulting cyburst hit the target, leaving another small dent but not much more. My head felt like it would split from trying to cancel it like that. So that was a legendary cyburst? Oh my god, these people! What is she doing? If they're so confident, maybe one of them can stand up here and try and do it. Ari folded his arms, staring at the target thoughtfully for a moment. Why did you try to cancel it? It started out much stronger than your other attempts. I just panicked. It was stronger than I expected. I understand that this is all still new to you, but you need to learn to not be afraid of your abilities. Easy for you to say. Oh no, that's. Are you certain? Because remember, Vanessa was saying something about how, the whole reason he does meditation is because he has a really hard time with, like, blocking out, like, all the energy. We should not have said that. Ari folded his left arm against his torso and rested his right elbow in his hand, pressing his fingertips to his temple. His head angled downward, and he closed his eyes, tapping against the side of his face as he often did when he was thinking. He finally looked up again and turned towards the door. Are you serious, Ari? Wow. Heidi, why don't you come and demonstrate? She looked just as surprised as I was at that request. I understand you've raised your psi enough to be able to release a psi burst of your own. Was I incorrect? Is Ari is much more conniving than I gave him credit for. No, I can do it. I tried to catch his eye to at least glare at him, but he wasn't looking at me. Heidi joined us on the mat with a doubtful expression, taking position next to me. I'll admit I felt a twinge of amusement at her expression. Not fun to be the center of attention, is it? I tried to quash the glee because I suspected she was about to outperform me anyway. And then it would be my turn to look foolish again. Just as I had, Heidi took a deep breath. She stared at the target intently, as if psyching herself up for what she was about to do. I retracted my reverse cage so I could view her psi waves more clearly. If I watched her this way, it might be easier to understand how what she did differed from what I was doing. I was a little surprised by how pale and thin her psi energy was. Ari was elite, and I was, well, a queen rank and all that. But the difference was striking, especially since Heidi was supposed to be adept as an infantry. I didn't have much in the way of comparison, but I wondered if that was what normal psi looked like. It seemed like she didn't wait quite as long as I had before the burst of energy rolled away from her towards the target. Interesting. I couldn't tell if it was because her abilities were weaker, but it seemed she condensed it into a much tighter coil of energy than I did. I wonder if that's intentional, or if she just has to compensate for the level of her psi. Either way, it hit the target, crinkling the metal like paper. It was definitely a stronger attack than mine, despite that my psi was greater than hers. I guess it was the difference between potential and experience. Heidi's eyes narrowed as a small, pleased smile formed. There were murmurs from the audience at the door. It's not like I was particularly competitive, not in the sense of wanting to outdo other people, rather than just doing my personal best. But somehow that really irritated me. Girl, it's because you probably like Ari a little bit, and Heidi definitely likes Ari. Yeah. Although, like, I never thought that Ari would be the instigator type. I have to say, I didn't see that coming. Okay. Thank you, Heidi. I tried to tune everyone out as I studied the target, thinking about what Ari had said before, about how I couldn't be afraid of my own abilities. Heidi probably had complete confidence that Cyburst would turn out the way she wanted. I didn't have the same confidence because I lacked her experience, and because last time had turned out so badly. This wasn't the same situation as back then. I wasn't scared, confused, or under attack. But knowing I was capable of that level of destruction was frightening. I understand where Morgan is coming from, okay? Like, she almost took down an entire building without even meaning to. I think most people would be a little scared after doing that. And, like, I understand what Ari's trying to do here, but I think they're are other ways that he could have achieved his goal than sort of pitting these two people that already have like a certain level of antagonism between them against one another. If I condense the psi the way Heidi did, then that would be enough to stop it from doing some kind of massive damage. A smaller spread of damage, if you will. That made sense. As I stood there thinking about it, Ari had Heidi return to the door. He leaned down to me again. If you want to show them you're not an outsider, and that you belong in the role you've been given, now is your chance. Way to put us on the spot, Ari. Wait, was the whole point of having her, of all people, do that to provoke me? You just caught on to that, Morgan, really? Try it one more time. Oh, we can't even do this one. Refuse to be played against another agent. See, that's what I would do. I would choose this one if I was there. Like, I mean, like I said, I understand what he's trying to do, but I think that there are other ways of motivating Morgan that aren't going to further the antagonism between her and someone who is potentially like a coworker or a subordinate. Do it again. You will get it right this time, or try to give it one more shot. No, we're getting it right this time. Like we need to bring the confidence. If he is going to be putting us on the spot in front of all these people and pitting us against someone who already just absolutely like loathes us for reasons that we can't control, like we need to be confident about what we're doing. Fine. I would do it right this time. I definitely would not allow Heidi to best me in this. I understand why they were all watching and laughing at my struggle. As someone raised outside this group, I didn't fit in or meet their expectations. But if I had to be here, I wouldn't let myself be labeled an outsider. I'd do my best and I would be respected for it. That's right, Morgan. Like you show them. It was no different from doing my best at studies. I shut my eyes and refocused myself. Forget Heidi, forget Ari, forget everyone. I didn't have to prove this to anyone but myself. And I didn't even have to prove it to myself, because I knew I could do it. I'd been the top in my studies, and I would be the top here. As soon as the mental image of my psi energy crystallized, I visualized a narrow tunnel between myself and the target. Condense it down as far as it will go so it won't run wild. Coil it up tight. Ooh, did you guys see that? I pushed the energy away from my body with as much force as I could muster, and I didn't try to pull back. This time, it shot away from me with enough force it nearly knocked me down. It struck the target. There was a flash that blinded me. I flinched, holding up a hand to shield my eyes. Behind me, there were a few panicked cries, scuffling of people moving around, then soft murmurs. But the ceiling wasn't coming down on our heads, so there was that. When I opened my eyes again, Ari was standing in front of me as if shielding me from something. He was looking over his shoulder at the target. What? I peered around him, freezing when I saw the damage that I'd done. There was little left of the target beyond a twisted and smoking bit of scrap on the floor. The wall behind it had a hole in it, with cracks spreading out like a spiderweb from a massive scorch mark. There was debris scattered around the room, remnants of the target and probably bits of the wall as well. On the other side of the hole were a few concerned faces peering into our training room. Oh my gosh. Like I said, the awkwardness in situations that involve Morgan and Ari it never ceases. I glanced up at Ari with an awkward smile. Oops. I suppose I encouraged you to do it. Oh, so it's your fault this time. I can accept that. All things considered, we should be glad you only destroyed part of one wall. And from the looks of things, you may have finally proved your point to some of those doubting you. I returned back to where the others were, while I took a water break. Now, if the rest of you don't mind, I'd like to continue our lesson in private. There were a few groans, but no one argued as they all filed out into the hall. I wasn't one bit disappointed to see them go. As soon as we were alone, I gave them the most annoyed scowl I could muster. You could have done that way sooner, and I wouldn't have complained. Oh, really, Morgan? I would have. I am of a totally different mind, I have to say. As I said, it's necessary to learn to focus even with distractions. Heidi already hates me enough without you giving her even more reason to. Okay, yes, I agree with this completely. Perhaps, but I merely observed it worked. Really, Ari? I glared at him. You know what? Vaughn was right. You are a brat. His lips turned up at the corners. Perhaps. He says perhaps. Really, Ari? I hope I'm not interrupting. I was startled by the unfamiliar voice by the door, but Ari didn't appear perturbed by the unexpected intrusion, as usual. Someday I hope I get to see him at least a little surprised. Okay, we've got a new face. The woman standing in the door was someone I'd never met or seen before. She looked to be in her 80s, perhaps with faded blonde hair and bright blue eyes. I mean, she looks pretty good for somebody in her 80s. I know she's probably younger because this age is based on our college years, but still. Okay, I don't know what that translates to. Maybe let's see, 60. I think she'd be around 60. An agent? I didn't get that sense from her, but something about her felt familiar. There were quite a few junior agents leaving just now. If I'd known your training sessions were public, I'd have come by earlier. They're not. However, we managed to gather an audience today. It looks like I missed something exciting, though. Is this why you practiced in one of the self-repairing rooms? You guys are gonna have to excuse my voices. I'm trying to sort of hit my stride because I've never tried anything like this before, and the voices are gonna be a little awkward at first until I sort of get the hang of it. Most of the stronger ranked agents do, and this was a normal session for us. She smiled slightly as she came further into the room. Ariel, you're forgetting your manners. You haven't introduced us yet. Is this Ari's mom? Honestly, I thought you'd gotten better at this kind of thing. Ari lifted an eyebrow, tilting his head just as if it only just occurred to him that that was the thing he should do. Morgan. Yes! Okay. Ulrich. This is... No, wait. Wait, whose last name is Ulrich? Is that Ari's? Oh my gosh. Somebody's... I'm just gonna read. Morgan, this is Therese Ulrich. She is a member of the council. A council member? What was she doing here then? And Ulrich? Oh, Magnus's mom! Correct. She is Magnus's mother. So Magnus's mother is leader of the council. And Magnus is head of Endgame. And the council pretty much controls Magnus. Huh. That must be why she seemed familiar. It's a pleasure to meet you, Morgan. I apologize for not coming to greet you sooner. I was worried when I heard you were struggling with your sudden recruitment. I'm sure you were. I thought it might be best to give you time to become more settled. Magnus seemed to think that might be the case, or be the case by now. Thank you. I appreciate you thinking about my comfort. It's nice to meet you too. I hadn't interacted with anyone from the council before, so I wasn't sure how to treat her. They were the governing body of Endgame after all. Ariel, as much as I hate to disturb your session, would you mind leaving us for a bit? I wish to speak to Morgan alone. Well, that's never a good sign. For the first time since I'd known him, Ari hesitated. But it was only a moment. Interesting. He nodded to me slightly and, without another word, strode out the door. It slid shut behind him. My, he's rather protective of you, isn't he? Is he? Well, I suppose it's easy to see for those of us who have known him longer. She took a seat on a bench and patted it, indicating I should come over and join her. I did so with hesitation, unsure what this was about. I've been keen to read your daily training reports for the last few weeks, Morgan, and I must say I'm impressed with your progress in such a short amount of time. When you started, You know almost nothing about psi abilities, and now you're creating cybursts of that magnitude. She nodded towards the target and damaged the wall. I'm not sure that's anything to be impressed by. Even some infantry are capable of this much. She laughed at that. Only if they're exceptional. And you're interesting. Not for your current level, but for your growth potential and the speed at which you're learning. Ari's an excellent teacher. If I've learned anything, it's because of that. Oh, that's Morgan, sorry. Ari's an excellent teacher. If I've learned anything, it's because of that. Oh, come now. There's no need to be modest. If your school records are anything to go by, you've always been a hard worker. It's the only way to get by in New Albion. That is true, I suppose. Their system is ruthless when it comes to those who aren't at the top. Ruthless is one way to put it. There is a big push to always work hard. Even so, we were a little concerned with your ability to catch up with your training. With some other factions flaunting their queen-ranked espers, some of our members were worrying about your inability to locate one, or about our inability to locate one. Our ability to maintain the peace on this planet relies on our remaining the strongest. Or there are those that believe that way. You aren't one of them? Let's say that I believe strength is not always about brute force, though I don't regret that we brought you into the fold. I wasn't sure about being considered brute force. I don't blame her. That's not the best compliment. Therese was silent. Is this Charisse? I'm wondering if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Therese was silent for a moment before she continued. And how are you settling in here aside from training? Well, it's getting easier. I'm glad to hear that. I'm relieved the incident around your recruitment didn't impact your ability to work with Magnus and the others. I know it was difficult, but I hope you understand. The council made the call in the hopes it would be best for everyone, even if it didn't go entirely as planned. The council gave that order, based on the recommendation of some of our bishops, yes. Magnus told me he made the call. She sighed softly, shaking her head. I was surprised by the sadness that flitted over her features. He always tries to shoulder everything alone, but no, it was the council. None of the guard were thrilled with the plan, including my son. So it wasn't Magnus who made the decision. I wonder why he was protecting the council. Interesting, but he couldn't help but wonder why she was here. Not just to chat about her son and my progress, I was sure. May I ask why you wanted to talk to me today? Is it that difficult to believe I wish to get to know you a little? Absolutely, yes. No, it isn't that. I just assumed there was a specific reason. Well, it isn't as if you're wrong, though I do like to speak with our agents sometimes. The council is too inclined to stay shut up in our offices and meetings, making decisions about people we never speak of. I don't think it hurts to get out ever so often and interact with agents personally. She laughed, a regretful sound at odds with how I'd come to imagine the council. But unfortunately, I had another reason for coming here today. I know you've been updated on the situation in Syrah. Yes, I was told the Queen's Guard might be... Have they reached some sort of ceasefire? No, there's been a new development. You'll be receiving a briefing file soon enough, but I wanted to talk to you about it first. Morgan, there may be illegal experimentation going on somewhere in Syrah, the sort we would have to put an end to for everyone's safety. Experimentation of what? Weapons? Or experimentation regarding espers? As soon as she said that, there was an uncomfortable pang in my gut. Why are you telling me this? There was a group of researchers arriving to Endgame from a small lab there. Our X-Trench, you mean? It happens from time to time. After all, our research division is one of the leading sources of psionic planet waves. Much of our research is classified, but some is available to the public. We occasionally have teams that come to look at those journals or talk to our scientists. This group arrived in our cause about a day before the blockade went up and has been touring various facilities on the planet known to be doing studies into the fairy phenomenon. Oh no. I already had a feeling I knew where this was heading. We believe they might have ties to the dissidents and may be involved in alleged experimentation on Syrah. She paused, giving me a long, careful look. Oh god. Is something the matter? I know someone who is researching espers on Syrah. Magnus and I have discussed him, and Magnus said he was coming here. I see. In that case, you can guess what I will say next. I know very little about what Trent Erickson was doing on Syrah, but his lab was being funded by the Triad. Officially, yes. However, two workers at the facility have been arrested in connection to the current revolt. One of them exhibited symptoms of burnout despite not being an esper. Okay, burnout is a medical condition usually only suffered by espers. In its most severe form, it involves a complete and total shutdown of the fork system and is usually permanent. Oh wow. However, burnout is described as a spectrum and can sometimes result in temporary damage that can be overcome partially or entirely with therapy. There are scattered and rare instances of burnout appearing in non-espers who somehow manage to damage their fork systems. There are usually extenuating circumstances at play, often involving things like nano overgrowth. Oh, that does not sound good. Espers who have already begun to exhibit fade symptoms are usually at high risk of burnout, but it can affect an esper that overuses their abilities.